Greetings and welcome to the Thirsty Mage, the podcast ready to look back on the last 25 years of gaming. Welcome to the podcast, I'm David Lloyd, and when you look back on the past 25 years of RPGs, you'll probably be saddened to realize that it's not games like Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy VI, it's actually games like Skyrim, Trails, and, Final Fantasies that start with an X. As time cruelly marches forward, we'll take a quick pause to look back at the past 25 years and come up with a list that is absolutely, definitely, and in no way debatable and universally agreed upon by everyone. For the first time in a long time, we've got the entire Thirsty Mage crew out for this important discussion, starting with the man who has the second longest amount of time with all these games on our list. It's Jordan Rudick.
Are you calling me old, David? It sounds like you're calling me old.
Yeah,
I mean,
I feel like I'm projecting if I can project age onto you, then I won't feel as old as the elder statesman.
That's right. Yeah. Hey, two peas in the pod we can be. I know this is good. I'm excited about this. I feel like, whenever you get to kind of one of these milestone type years, like 2025, that was kind of the inspiration for this episode. I was like, okay, 2025 sounds like, a time to start thinking about the last 25 years because we've reached the, quarter mark of this century. So, top 25 RPGs. And you're right, completely, this is the definitive list with a capital D. So you can look forward to, all the internet trolls and everyone coming out of the woodwork to debate this list. But there's no debate, obviously.
Yep. Also joining us here with his list of ports and remakes because the 90s that's when all the good RPGs were made. It's Casey Gibson.
Yep. The best of times. And it's always a pleasure to be talking to you guys because you make me feel like a young buck. When over on Talk Nintendo, I'm the old man. So, despite losing my hair over here, you add some youth into me.
Yeah, well, it's I'm happy to be the gray hair on a podcast for you.
The silver fox, if you will.
That's right, the silver fox.
Bragging that you have hair, David? Come on.
Yeah. Oh, that's
really
true.
Under attack here.
Yeah. I'm growing the playoff beard early, and it's coming in gray. So what can I tell you?
I've been growing the playoff beard for 14 years, or a lack of playoff beard.
And here representing the objective opinion from a lack of nostalgia, because she's barely older than many of the games on this list, it's Paige Chamberlain.
Hey, I am at least 5 years older than some of the games that are qualified to be on this list.
That's good to hear, because when I was thinking about it, I was like, it would really be sad if you were younger than any of these games.
No, I'm not a 2000 baby. So.
That's good. We were all born in the 90s or 80s, I guess, at this point.
Yeah.
That was the only qualification for the podcast.
Yeah. That's because the opinions of anyone born in the 2000s need not apply in this case, because we are talking about, yes, the top 25. We're not going to order them. That'll be saved for another day. But what we are going to do is we're going to list them in general. So, we've started the list off recording, I guess you'd say, beforehand. We've got 15 or so that I would say are absolute slam dunks. We'll list them out. We'll discuss them a little bit and say why they deserve to be on the list and why they deserve not to be debated in any way. And then, we're going to fight tooth and nail for the final 10 spots for our favorite RPGs. We looking at each other's kind of backup lists, I guess it is. It's clear that there's going to be some dissension in the ranks. And hopefully, no stones or sticks will be thrown. We all live in multiple time zones, so thankfully, the worst we can do is hack each other's cell phones or something. I don't know.
Well, I'm not even allowed to send threatening mail to you at the moment, so.
Yeah, that's right.
We're protected by Canada Post backlog and strike, so that's good.
Yeah, that's right.
One good thing to come out of this.
Yeah, any threatening mail will need to be electronic because my postman will not deliver it. But yeah, I guess, did you guys have any other, I know there'll probably be some debates about quality of games. There'll be some debates about whether a game maybe should be included, because of circumstances. I'm sure rules will be made on the fly, but if anyone has any additional things that they want to throw in here before we start tossing names out, now's the time to get it out in the open.
I made the mistake of looking at the Discord list where we have folks sharing like lists of RPGs, and obviously I knew I was going to miss a few, and so I've added scrambled to add 3 or 4 to my list at the end. So at this point, we all have a different length of list, so inevitably we're going to have to drop a few of these to get to our final 25. But I was thinking about how we might go about this episode, whether we want to kind of go one at a time. I think we should probably cover the titles you've put on our spreadsheet, David, in red first, that we think are pretty much shoe-ins to make the list, and just solidify that they are probably going to be in our top 15. That's like you said, there's going to be a second episode to rank these 25 games once we get them on there. But maybe starting with the closer to slam dunks, and maybe we, in talking about these, some of them become not slam dunks, and we can change them back from red font to black font and throw them back in the maybe pile. That might be fun. But I thought maybe we would start there. We could just kind of go one at a time and introduce a red game on our list, and that person could start talking about it, and then someone else can jump in before we move to the next one.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if you guys have noticed, but there's a clear pattern in the list of the initial 15 with whose pick is whose at this point. So
they definitely seem right off your list mostly. I'd say.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I see like 8 Trails in the Skies game. I don't know.
Watched him copy and paste his list directly to the top 10.
And all I know is I had more, and they started getting deleted. So who knows what David's really cooking behind the scenes here.
That's what you get when the script is under my login ID.
The best part was I made like a Google Doc or a spreadsheet or something like that, and then Casey and I started adding to it, and then Dave makes his own, and we're like, oh no, we're using this one.
Yeah, I need control, boys.
Okay, ulterior motive here.
I need the ability to toss everybody out in a case of emergency. Like, no, I'm sorry, the list cannot change.
You are not the owner of this document. You cannot make any further changes. Of course. Yeah. David, why don't you start then? Because you've got the number.
Well, that's right your game, though. The number one game is a you game. That's you.
What? I'm looking at your full list.
No, look at the script.
Oh, the script. Yeah, okay, sorry.
I was looking at the spreadsheet as well.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, I can go first.
Well, how did that get ahead of number 2 is what I want to know.
No. Come on. It's definitely going to be there at the end.
This was the bone I threw to Jordan.
Look at this.
I couldn't make it super obvious.
Look at this guy. What a pal. What a chum. Number one in my heart, maybe. But on our list from our show notes, not our kind of planning spreadsheet, Mass Effect 2. I think Mass Effect 2 is the first game I wrote on my list, and I can confirm that is true. First one that came to mind, I have been playing some BioWare games lately. We did an episode with Dragon Age Origins impressions. And I also mentioned on Blue Sky that I was dabbling in Mass Effect Andromeda for a hot minute. That dabbling is kind of what reinforced Mass Effect 2 being at the top of this list, because Mass Effect Andromeda ain't no Mass Effect 2. That is for darn sure. Mass Effect 2 is fantastic. I mean, great story, awesome cast, just incredible all the way through. Great choices. You really get to know every character because they all have like individual missions that are really intriguing. It's got one of the greatest kind of climaxes and ending missions, maybe in all video games. Very, very, very memorable. It improved on the first game in so many ways. Very hard not to see it as kind of just a definitive sequel. Being able to replay it with the Legendary Edition that came out a few years ago just cemented the greatness of this game. But yeah, what an incredible accomplishment. And when I think back to like the BioWare of old, the BioWare that I still wish were here today, that probably isn't. Mass Effect 2 is one of those kind of things that I hang my hat on. So yeah, easy inclusion in my top 10, top 15 list. And I will be fighting hard for this one when we get to our ranked list as well.
Yeah, well, it's good that we're talking about BioWare now, because apparently the consumers have also decided with their money that
I saw that
this is not the BioWare of old anymore. I guess the Dragon Age Veilguard did incredibly poorly in sales. to the point where EA thought they're going to make money this year, and now they're not. So
I wonder though. I saw right. It was like 50%.
50% missed
Now,
projections.
Was it one of these ridiculous? We've spent 200 million. We need 100. You know, what I mean, like 50 million sold to recoup.
No, it
Or
was they
were
gave real
modest?
numbers. EA
Okay.
thought it was going to be 3 million, and it was
Yeah.
only 1.5 million, and that's not even necessarily sales, because the wording that the CEO used was
Shipped.
basically like people played, like there was a free trial.
Downloads.
Yeah,
Ooh.
downloads.
Yeah.
Oof.
So
That's rough.
Ouch.
yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, even Veilguard, which I enjoy to an extent, all of these more recent games, just they all pale in comparison to Mass Effect 2, which is really their magnum opus, I'd say. And yeah, it's I think it's
They've
a
been
slam
chasing
dunk.
that one.
If anyone wants to, we won't debate it right now. I think there's a lot of other games to debate, but I think it's going to be there at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's no point in debating Mass Effect 2, because we already know that the next game on the list is the greatest
Number
game
one.
that ever made, and it's really weird that it was made in 2024. Like, what can you know?
Ever made and ever will be made, David.
Yeah, yep, greatest. What's the greatest of all time, never to be replicated or duplicated.
Even though it is a replication.
Partly.
Partly.
It's so different. It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway, it's Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Yeah.
Greatest game
If
ever
you've
made.
been listening to this podcast,
We should probably
Or-
do an
yeah.
episode on that game at some point.
well,
like the
you know,
sixth episode?
I think
or...
I was going to say, I
Yeah.
think the 6 or 7 we have.
I believe it was 7.
I agree. We need
I
some
believe
more.
it was 7.
Thematically, you had to do 7, I think.
Yeah.
It
Could have
was-
been 8.
Uh,
Oh, you know what? Now that you say that, I'm going to be sad if we did 8.
We could delete one.
delete one. Yeah.
We'll delete the one that Casey had to miss, and then,
There you
and
go.
Yeah.
then canonically it'll be all
Never,
Casey and me.
never actually
Well, that's
happened.
the reason I missed it, because I would be damned if I was on more than 7.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this game is the best. David and I both had this as our number 1 right up there, easy peasies.
Yeah.
It's just so darn good. I'd say the only bad thing about it is it doesn't look like we're going to get DLC.
Yeah,
No.
which
Yeah,
I don't know if I mind that so much, because I'm not a huge DLC person to begin with. Although I did like Intermission, the remake Intermission. So
Yeah, well, that's
That
what
was
I was
great.
hoping we get something similar with Sid or Vincent. You know,
yeah,
it seemed like it would probably line up to be more Vincent if they were going to do it. But I would love. Obviously, Sid's my boy.
Vincent already had a spin-off with Dirge of Cerberus, right? So we can't get another one.
Yeah.
Sid, though, that'd be
Yeah.
really
oh,
cool.
Smoking
Dirge of
Simulator.
Service. Why isn't that on the list?
Yeah, come
Hold
on.
on, let me just add it.
Yeah,
Hold on.
tip that on there. But yeah, and I believe it did it just come out on Steam, or it's coming out on Steam soon.
I think it just came out, right? I
Yeah,
just see
so-
people with impressions of it.
Okay, so yeah, even more people get to play. It's Steam Deck verified.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Apparently,
Just-
it like runs really well on like they did some good optimization.
Tomorrow,
apparently.
the 23rd.
The reviews that I've read are all like Square's getting it now. They're like really getting into the PC space. So
Makes
and
sense.
well, I guess by the time you listen to this, you won't be able to take advantage of the pre-purchase, but 30% off is pretty good for a
That's
pre-purchase.
solid, yeah.
yeah. Well, Casey,
yeah.
you have an older game on this list.
Hold
This
on, aren't
one
we doing
just
a
squeezed
rebuttal of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth? Shouldn't we do a rebuttal of that one to see if it really belongs on
Okay,
the
hold
list?
on. This is where nobody says anything.
No. They can
And then
say
there's the
all.
rebuttal.
David's
They
muted,
can say
muted
all
everybody.
they want, David. You're the one editing this.
Yeah.
You just edit in cricket sounds like, oh, okay.
What happened to our 5-minute diatribe on the weakness of the mini games and stuff?
Oh, hold on. Here we go.
Well,
Here's the rebuttal.
Yeah, exactly. But that's your
If
rebuttal
it
to what I
was a
said.
good game, then maybe it should have sold well enough that they're gonna make 4 games and not the 3.
I want the Chocobo on the list.
Chocobo Racing.
Yeah.
Pretty sure it's an
There we go.
RPG.
Oh, there's
Sounds-
Chocobo Mystery Dungeon, but that's not a good.
No, it is not.
We're
But
getting off the
yes,
rails already.
There are better
You
games from
better
that series.
get us,
yeah,
bring
we're
us
only
back.
on
Us
game
back,
3
Casey.
here. So this one just squeezing in, but one of my all-time favorites, and as well, I know Jordan. We're going with Diablo
Heck
2.
yes.
Man, I mean, obviously, Resurrected is really, really good too. But the OG stands the test of time. You can go back and play that, and it is so good. The beauty of it, right, is like obviously it's super addicting. It's you're going in, you're getting a lot, killing tons of monsters, and you're getting all sorts of loot and getting stronger. But what I really love about it is like the structure of the game, right? There is a story, there are quests to be done, but you literally don't have to do like 75% of them. Like you could just go do the end bosses. And like in Act 2, you need to like the first time around, you need to make a staff, which requires a little bit of hiking around. But yeah, super good game. Lots of characters. The Lord of Destruction expansion just added a couple more and made it even better. Another full act. And honestly, I listened to the music from this game like seriously on like a weekly basis. At some point I'm listening to like the title screen or some of the music throughout. And yeah. And like I said, I think Resurrected, they did an amazing job, especially being able to toggle in between the old graphics and the new. And they were able, even with the new graphics, we're able to like, you're like, oh, this is exactly how I remembered it. And then you like toggle back to the old graphics and you go, oh man, like it's way different, but it just keeps the same feeling, and yeah, best game ever.
It's such a fun game. Like it was so fun just roll a new character. Like I'm sure at some point I played every class. Probably played assassin the least, but multiple druids, multiple necromancers, because you could build them out so many different ways, right? Super fun. I remember having all the guidebooks. I spent almost as much time reading the guidebooks as I did playing the game. I was so fascinated by everything, revisiting things and secrets and stuff I missed, and looking at all this. If you put points into this stat or into this ability, what it would max out at damage wise. It's such a cool game. Even like the stories about trading items and stuff like that, and talking about like your rare drops and things, like just it was kind of a playground game of sorts, for a teenage me. But yeah, everybody and his dog was playing this game. Had tons of pals playing it together, doing the multiplayer and everything like that. Just a blast. Yeah. And I think man. I'm with you, Casey. Like if we were going to put a Diablo game on there, I think it's this one. And I'm thinking mostly because of like not just the game. The gameplay is good, but I think it's like just the impact of this game. Like I think it's had a major impact on like this genre of game, and you would see so many come afterwards trying to be like this.
Yeah, but it's funny. Yeah, totally a playground game. Yeah, I had a bunch of like I have actually friends like I'm still friends with today that like we pretty much like originally bonded over playing Diablo 2.
Yeah.
And it was also one of those like my brother and I both played it, but we only had one computer. So like we would share like he'd play an hour, then I'd play an hour, then he'd play an hour, and like we would literally do this all night. And you just pray the other man fell asleep during your hour, so you could just keep going.
You really should have started hardcore characters. You should cheer on the other person.
I just assumed they both went to bed with black eyes from fighting over the keyboard.
100%. Yeah.
You pull the Ethernet cable. Oh, you died.
Can you imagine? Oh.
Dude, but I think this was like the game that like just like theory crafting, right? Like going online in forums and seeing people talking about different builds and then eventually the items, how they could just so drastically change the builds. And like I think PoE is sort of like I like Diablo 4, but I haven't played a lot of Path of Exile, but that seems to be the game people are really loving and really being able to like really sink their teeth into from like a theory crafting point of view.
For sure. Yeah.
Well, this next game on the list is the first one that Paige had, and I don't think any of the rest of us would disagree with it.
No.
Yeah, I was thinking E8's a good one. It's not a remake of anything. It's it's a continuation of a series. It's the first one in the series that I've played, and I just really liked the game. It was just, there are some criticisms I have, which is that I don't really care about Dana's story, or I think the true ending is rubbish, and I don't like the main plot, but I really love the connection you have because you're survivors on a desert island and getting to like know people and build a community, and I really like that aspect of the story. And it's got really awesome music. It's got heaps of different game modes where you're like invading, and it's just supposed to be a stealth mission, and then the music kicks in, and it's extremely intense after it was telling you just to be quiet and to not wake the dinosaurs up. You've got wave defense, and there's different just nice different mechanics, like how you had healing items, but you only had so many bottles at that point in the game, so it was limited quite how much you could. So I had one boss fight where you're blockaded off at the mountain, and I was literally eating the individual bits of like apples and stuff to have enough health just to beat them, and so I wouldn't have to do it again.
This game is the only game score I regret during my review. I should have given it higher.
What did you give it?
I gave it an 8.5.
Yeah.
Okay, I gave it an 8, but I'm a bit I'm mean to games.
I would looking back, I was like easy 9.
Mm-hmm.
At least.
The music in this game is incredible. Like just the sound effects, like from Adol like shouting all his moves and the other characters too. And then just the one song I listen to all the time, and I'm blanking on the name, when you're kind of going up the mountain. It's so good. But yeah, it's like for me, like the kind of prototypical like 3D Ys experience. And I think 9 and 10, good in their own ways, but I don't think they've replicated the just that sense of adventure that Ys 8 had. Like I think it's the best one, I think, of the 3 modern ones for sure.
Are you talking about Sunshine Coastline?
No, I'm not. I'll get the name. You guys can keep chatting for a sec here. I've got it saved.
Well, you're next on the list, so that doesn't really work out.
Doesn't help me at all.
We can talk about Diablo 2 again.
Well,
I can talk about the game.
The song I was talking about with the stealth mission is the one that's called Night Survivor.
Oh,
okay.
The music I'm thinking of is Gendarme. It's the mountain, like the Gendarme mountain, right? It's crazy upbeat. It's so good.
Yeah.
GENS space
Gins.
Yeah. Once you hear it, you'll recognize it right away. It's just so iconic. Amazing.
It's really like Rocky, they have the electric guitars every second they need them,
Yeah. Just so upbeat. And then again, you compare that with like the tranquil like beach scenes, or when you're back in the village, then you start going up the mountain, the boss fights, and the guitars come out, and you're just rocking and rolling. It's just, man, there's a few games that kind of have that contrast and just nail it, and Ys 8 is one of them for sure.
Yeah, what I will say about your game, Jordan, is that I need to play it again, because I played this game not knowing a thing about the story or a thing about the characters, and now I've watched all 3 seasons and started reading the books.
There you go.
So I need to go back.
I need to read the books, and so the next game on the list, which again I think you'd find this on many like top 10, top 20 like RPG lists pretty easily, and usually high on the list. And that's Witcher 3. Witcher 3 is funny because I didn't really play the first 2 games. Might have dabbled a little bit, had a look at them, but I remember being super excited for Witcher 3 and just reading like all the preview and review content that came out around the time of launch. And then finally picking this game up and playing it and just being blown away by how realistic it is, how cool and fun it is to play as Geralt. He is a badass, and the choices in this game are just, it's probably the closest I've played in a game to like BioWare type choices, or like Fallout type choices, Skyrim ones, where you're doing things and they feel meaningful, really meaningful decisions. But the quests can be so intricate in this game too. Like the Bloody Baron quest, like I don't want to spoil it for anybody if you haven't played it, but once you see that quest line through, I promise you'll be blown away by how it can wrap up. I guess, and I don't know all the possible endings, but the one I had was just wild. Another great thing about The Witcher 3 is that the DLC like has 2 like kind of major DLC expansions, and they're massive too. There's one that takes you to like a French kind of countryside, and it's just another huge map to explore and lots of fun stuff to do there. I think it's called Blood and Wine. But just another, I think you go to like a masquerade ball and stuff like that. So the game kind of takes you to a lot of different places, but just exploring its open world, which is massive. There's just tons of fun stuff to do, lots of quests, and just
Gwent?
lots of like interesting side quests too.
I was gonna say, do we give games that have a whole nother game inside of them extra points?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, we're trying to give the number 2 slot to Queen's Blood?
Witcher 3, the complete edition. Come on, that's the one we're going to be playing if we do play the Witcher 3. The base game is enough. It's just the fact that like you have an expansion that comes out and it adds like 30% more length and size to the game. It's pretty amazing.
To an already
pretty crazy.
ginormous game.
Yeah.
Well, and I want to play
card games.
There's like an upgraded version for the PS5 that's free too.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say the best. I played like an hour maybe at some point, barely any. But the good thing is it's always on sale. Like during Steam sales, I feel like you can always get The Witcher for like $4.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cheap. And it sounds like they're making another one. And I think one of the things that really resonates about this game is that you think about this follow-up from this developer was Cyberpunk, right? And I think everyone coming off of the success of Witcher 3 is like, oh, Cyberpunk's going to be like Witcher 3. It's going to be that good. And then you have all these huge expectations which aren't met. I think that speaks to how good The Witcher 3 is, that everyone expected something close with Cyberpunk. And Cyberpunk's not even a bad game. And I think they've probably done a lot to fix it in the interim. But, you know, if Witcher 4 is anything like 3, man, we're in for a treat. Because, yeah, Witcher 3 is just a dynamite RPG.
Yeah, you're joking about games that we didn't even mention when we were coming up with the list, and Cyberpunk.
Cyber what?
Didn't even cross my mind.
No, I mean, and maybe if we'd played that revamped version that came out, if that was our first impression of the game, I know we'd speak more positively about it. But man, that launch
you and I
was
played
rough.
the launch version,
So rough. I took it back to EB Games. I'm like, this game doesn't work. I want my money back. That's how bad it was.
And we were playing on PS5 too. That was the crazy part. It just crashed every 30 minutes.
It was bad. Yeah, we should have been playing on PS4. It was supposed to be better.
Yeah. Well, and my playthrough ended at a point where there was like this scene where you're like in a helicopter or something shooting something, and the game locked to the point where like it was impossible to get past that point in the game, and it was a cutscene.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, I guess this is it for this game. And like, I even looked it up, and they're like, once you hit that point, it's like, you know, you got to start a brand new game. You're screwed.
Oh, yeah, it's so bad. Yeah. I mean, if you were going to chocobo anything in this podcast, it has to be the Cyberpunk discussion. It's just such.
Can't sully this podcast any longer with Cyberpunk talk.
That's right.
We'll talk about the next game on the list, which I'm pretty sure I've purchased myself for everyone on this podcast and most of the people in Discord, and that's Trails in the Sky. You know, it's funny. I think we've got like 3 podcast episodes for this game, because I remember the first time I played. I believe it was Jordan and Guillaume. I think the 3 of us.
That sounds right. Yeah.
That was the first time we played it, but I didn't get through it all at the time, and I think I was distracted by some other game, like, you know, like Always or whatever. And so I didn't have Trails Fever at that point. And it wasn't until after playing Trails of Cold Steel 3 that I was like, man, like this series is pretty awesome, and I'll go back and play Trails in the Sky. And then it really, really nailed me then. And then, you know, 2 playthroughs after that, you know, third playthrough is when it really, you know, hits its stride, I guess you say. But no, yeah, this is an amazing game. Like, originally a PSP game, which is incredible. And, you know, I played it on Steam, which seems to be the best place for this particular game. And yeah, it's just, it's got everything. It's got incredible characters, incredible story. You know, it just feels great to play. It's one of those games where you're just traveling around and everything's positive and everything's great. And it was good enough that it spawned about 14 games since then. So, you know, they must have did something right.
Only 14? It seems like more.
Yeah.
In Japan, it's probably another 5 we don't have yet or something.
I actually did find other Legends of Heroes games at the Retro Store on PSP, but I had like a handful of Square Enix games at that point, and hard choices had to be made.
every time you go to that retro store, you always use the word handful. Like, you don't just walk out with 1 or 2 games. You always have, like, I imagine, like, your arms just being full of games and your wife, like, trying to drag you away from them.
He's
They
like,
have a picture on the wall, and instead of like "don't let him buy anything," it's like "make sure your smile's bigger when he walks
Yeah.
in." You know, like
Give him
he's
the
gonna
biggest
break
bag.
his
sticker.
fingers
Yeah,
one by
distract
one
his
to make
wife.
them longer.
Yeah.
I can't. I'm not allowed to go to the store alone
Lock the
anymore.
doors when he's in the store.
That's so
good.
funny.
Yeah, so I'm more than halfway through a playthrough of Trails in the Sky. So yeah, I think the first time I played it was probably for that podcast episode you mentioned, David. And yeah, like I can still feel and echo the sentiments that you're expressing here. Like I think the relationship between Estelle and Joshua, like it's so compelling just to see these two like young kids gonna explore their world together and meet people and, you know, interact with each other and kind of learn about each other. It's really, really charming, honestly, just the whole way through. I'm excited to get to the end, which I think the end is quite challenging actually compared to some of the earlier parts. But
Yeah.
it is a very fun game, and I think, you know, we talked about
Coming of age tale.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And I've never played the second chapter and third chapter, so I'm looking forward to doing the whole trilogy this year, probably. But yeah, I mean, you get so much of that signature Trails flavor here from the combat, which certainly does evolve over time, right? I think I really do like how it's changed in the Cold Steel games, and even in the you know, we've been talking a little bit about the upcoming release of Daybreak 2, and like it's just constantly evolving on that stuff. But you kind of see a lot of the roots in Trails in the Sky, and it's already really good turn-based flavor there. So yeah, fantastic game. I think it's going to have my vote to be on the list as well. This is, I mean, it's the beginning. Like I elected a different Trails game, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but yeah, Trails in the Sky is a very, very good choice for the list.
We might have gotten to the point in the list where the folks listening to the podcast may have an eyebrows raised, just like The Rock, when Casey tells us what his next one on the list is.
I think
if you smell what I'm cooking.
Isn't there about 100 episodes of TNP where you talk about this game?
Yeah, and
Probably,
I mean, right? It is only one of arguably the most influential games to ever be released. It even's got its own South Park episode. I mean, come on. Yeah, World of Warcraft. I think, you know, obviously MMOs are sort of a different beast, right? Like, I think Final Fantasy 14 is really good, and it's got some really good ones. But, you know, there's always ebbs and flows, right? You got the highs and the valleys with these games, and there are certainly some bad times in World of Warcraft's history. But I think, you know, in the grand scheme of things, it's hard to not include in a top 25 list, I think. Especially, you know, the first three, the trilogy, right? The first, like the Vanilla WoW, Burning Crusade, and Wrath of the Lich King. Really, it was, you know, when it was the most popular, really great storytelling, really fun, addicting gameplay. And, you know, it's funny, like the beginnings of WoW really aren't that, like, the game really isn't too hard, but like just the knowledge back in 2004 when it came out, right? There was no YouTube to go watch videos on how to do bosses. A lot of it, you know, there were guides, obviously, people writing stuff. But, you know, just the trial and error and getting people to play online. And, you know, I played Diablo 2, so there was, you know, you talk to people and stuff, but it's just such a different style of game. Oh, a little Leroy right there. I was like, what was that?
Definitely part of the gaming zeitgeist at the time.
But yeah, you know what it is? It's there wasn't a social media. Like like I can vividly remember just like logged in till like 2-3 in the morning, not even really playing the game per se, right? But mainly just hanging out and talking to people. Or like, oh, like fishing, right? Like there's literally you go throw the pole and you wait for it to bob in the water and you click on it and you catch a fish. Like doing that for hours, but just like because it was something to do while you were talking to your friends, you know? And like I said, like, you know, there's definitely some peaks and valleys and there's some bad times, but I do think it's on the rebound. But yeah, it is funny to like just when it first came out to now, they might both be World of Warcraft in name, but they are definitely different games, you know. So if I had to narrow it down, I'd say like the very early goings of WoW were really peak, like MMO and like early internet stuff. Like you said, you get those viral moments, the Leroy Jenkins, the funeral raid, and all that good stuff. So yeah, good old World of Warcraft, man. I literally still have friends I made in 2009 that I still talk to from WoW, and we're not even necessarily playing it, you know.
But you can't be a bunny girl.
Like...
So.
What's up?
You can't be a bunny girl.
No, you can't. But you can't. I was an undead. That was my first, like yeah, baby. But yeah, no bunny girls. But you could be a blood elf.
I was gonna make a joke about like, you know, me just waking up like after you've droned on and on about World of Warcraft, but the problem I can't because it's too like near and dear to your heart, and I think it's also like you're right. Like in terms of just cultural relevance and significance, like it's a massive game. Like it just has it's been part of like gaming for so long, and really like the model kind of for MMOs for so many years too. So
well, it's probably one of the, I don't know if there's any other games that have a South Park episode about that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And like, I mean, at one point there was over 12 million active subscribers. Think of that.
Yeah, it's nuts.
That's 12 million people paying $15 a month. It's absurd.
That's a lot of cash.
Pretty good.
Yeah. They were literally rolling in it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, only 180 million per month.
Yeah, I was just checking that.
Well, Sony foaming at the mouth. We need to make an MMO.
Yeah. And then here's Square Enix falling arse backwards into one themselves, realizing how much of a cash cow it can be.
Well, they worked hard on that one after they botched the early goings.
They're still running 2 MMOs at the same time.
Is 11 still up?
Yeah.
Technically, yeah.
I thought they were like, they had to shift to private servers at this point, but I never played 11.
No, I can't say I have either, but
we need Dragon Quest X. I've seen. Like,
I
think there's a workaround to like if you wanted to play it, but the offline mode. But come on, baby, we love Dragon Quest. Give it to us.
Well, it was so rude because in Dragon Quest Treasures you pick up stuff and it's a treasure, like so it's just a figure of a character from Dragon Quest X. So it'll like give you like a vague thing instead of their actual name because it refused to even give them a localized name for the character.
That's funny. That ain't right.
Well, speaking of Dragon Quest, that just happens to be the next game on our list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Dragon Quest 8, I played it on the 3DS, but the original version came out on PS2, so either way it counts as being in this current millennium. That's so
counts.
Personally, so there are some differences in the 3DS. I think the main advantage is the being able to turn the camera all the way around because there's this really neat thing where there's areas where metal slimes spawn, and if you turn the camera all the way around, it resets the monsters in an area. So I was able to get through the whole game completely ignoring one of the main combat mechanics, which was like it's pep up power something up system.
Yeah, pep up.
Yeah, pep up. Yeah, it's called that.
Or something
I did not do that the entire game. I even did the post game try. I did not. I was just 10 levels above everybody, like as if I was playing Pokemon. And the other speed up definitely. I don't know how I'd go playing it at the original speed, but otherwise, some of the other additions is just like one new ending that's nice, but the other post game stuff they added is pretty whatever. So generally just like the original game as it was, but I really so it was my first Dragon Quest, and it has there's like a lot to like. In any Dragon Quest game, you've got the music, you've got the monster designs, you've got busy the metal slimes, you've got going through your party and then changing up their weapons and skills. And for me, this actually, I felt like it took me until I was 20 hours into the game before I actually really liked it, which is, I don't know how I got that far in a game before I decided I was actually enjoying myself. But I really like it, and I think it's a really good story. really, really good world, just giving you all those different sort of places to go. You're making friends with people who, wouldn't normally really be friends together, aside from a couple guys. But I think most people probably wouldn't have picked up being friends with Angela if they could help. There's a really interesting plot going on with, him and his brother, and yeah, really cool areas to look at and explore the world. It was even funny how I managed to sort of do something out of order because I didn't. It was like I was supposed to go through the river to get to sort of like when you get to the next continent, and you're supposed to go to this side, but I didn't know the meaning of like the word it was telling me, so I landed on like the east side of the continent, and I was like, man, these guys are really tough, and just like ran past them and did the main story quest. Then when I went to the west side and they were talking about like the story hadn't happened yet, I was like, oh, I was meant to go here. And I also I did manage to miss some things. Like I went through the whole game without knowing that I could have gotten a saber cat, so that was a bit sad. But there's a lot to love about this game.
I got Dragon Quest 7 and 8 on the 3DS, and I played 7 and loved it. And I know that's sort of a hit or miss for some people, but I never got around to 8, unfortunately, and then it got sold in when I did the Great Purge, unfortunately. But one day I do want to get back into it because I've heard only really great things about 8.
Yeah,
Dragon Quest 8 is one of the PS2 games that was in my arms when I left the retro game store.
It came with you?
Yeah, I almost bought it twice, actually. I had forgotten that I had purchased it the first time, and I almost walked out the second time with it. But
funny.
Thank God I looked at it. I have a list on my phone, and I hadn't updated my phone, and like I'm at the till, and I'm like, I swear to God, I've already bought this game. And I'm like, I'm going to come back and get it if I don't have it already, but I'm pretty sure I bought this game, and yeah, I had bought it. So
I mean, it really is criminal that half of the Dragon Quest games are basically unplayable or unavailable, I should say, on modern platforms. And I have to imagine that with 3 HD 2D and the 1 and 2 coming next year, like there must be plans in place over the next 5 to 10 years to get all of these games out on modern platforms, because it's other than like mobile versions, which I know are there. Like I don't count those because that's terrible. But on dedicated video game consoles or Steam or wherever, like these have to be available somewhere.
Are you going to tell me that the Nintendo 3DS family of systems is not a modern game platform?
Hold on, let me check that eShop. Just let me boot it up really quick, and I'll have an answer for you in about 3 minutes, I think, when it finally opens up.
When Mario finally stops running, and
that's right. Yeah. Oh
no,
yeah, it's really good. It's a really good.
I'm sure the
too.
DS games will be the next on the list. I'm sure.
Gotta be. Yeah.
The first 3 will come out this year, and I bet you 4 and 5 will be next year.
Well, they're all trilogies, right? Like 4, 5, and 6 are another trilogy, so it just makes sense to do the same kind of thing. Like maybe you do 5 first, for some reason, because it's so popular, and then do 4 and 6 the next year. I don't know.
It's kind of sad how
experimenting.
Say for example, just on the Switch platform, you can get most of the Final Fantasies except for like the MMOs and anything from like 13 on. Like they're all been ported onto one way or another. On Steam, you have a bit more because you've got the MMOs and 13 and 14, 15, 16 and the 7 remakes. So you're like pretty much all of them.
The only thing I can think of is tricky.
Dragon Quest
is that
does not get that.
4 through 9 Dragon Quest, like the remakes in particular, like they're all on handheld devices. So like you can't just port them, unfortunately. Like I guess you could port like the Super Nintendo version of 4 and 5 or something, of Super Famicom. You could maybe port like the PlayStation versions, but people would be like, no, we want like the remade, DS and 3DS versions, obviously, because those are better. I think I haven't played the originals, but I'll say that they are very good. So yeah, I think that's part of it. Like porting like 7, 8, 9 PlayStation 1 games with a few enhancements to Switch, they're super easy, but harder with Dragon Quest. So I get that they have to be a little more thoughtful with it. But surely after seeing like the reception to 3, this remake has been really good. 1 and 2, I imagine, will get a lot of fanfare next year too. And then 12 is on the horizon. So like, keep the Dragon Quest hype train going here.
Dude, 12, I forgot. And
yeah,
that one looks like it could be a little different too.
It's easy to forget, right? Because 3 is really good. Yeah, and again, 1 and 2.
2/3 out of the main Dragon Quest guys aren't around anymore. So.
That's true. That is true.
and they already said it was going to be different. So now I think it's kind of semi on hold because I know Yuji Horii has been moved to other stuff for now, so it might be a while away.
I am anxious about it. And again, if you've got all these remakes kind of filling the gap, it's fine. Like, it's not like there's no Dragon Quest to play. That's the great thing.
That's all Square Enix's plan to distract you from the fact that the 12's not out yet. They're like, no, don't worry about 12. Just go play 1, 2, and 3 again.
I'd rather have 4 through 9 remade than 12. Like, blasphemy to some, I'm sure. But, I love my old games. And I'm scared about 12 changing. So,
well, speaking of old games.
Oh, boy. Yeah, what a classic. This must be from my list then. I almost bought this game again on Steam Deck like 2 days ago.
Oh, I
was so
did.
close.
I did too. I bought it. It was $4.
You bought it? I'll do that. I will buy it. I don't care. Just have it everywhere. You gotta have it everywhere. Skyrim. What else can be said about Skyrim other than it's like playable on like a fridge? It's playable everywhere. Like it's just.
I think you could play it on the Alarmo clock.
That would not surprise me, right? It is synonymous with like contemporary kind of open world RPGs, right? Like it's set the standard for what those games could be. I think. Just remember it kind of so fondly being attached to like the Switch launch or the Switch reveal, right? The Skyrim on the airplane. But even before that, like it released on like I think it started back on the PS3 and the Xbox 360. I remember how buggy the PS3 version was, but it didn't matter because like the bugs almost made it fun. Like you could laugh at it and how dumb it was and the glitches and things like that. But the game itself is just so again just filled with fun things to do and just open world to just explore and get lost in and wander around in. All those things were fun. You'd come across a cave or treasure or fight a dragon. Like truly like a make your own adventure type of game from the, the classes that you choose or the races you choose at the beginning. Like there's so many different ways to play and experience that game. I'm still watching like playthroughs and speed runs of this game to this day. Like if I see something with Skyrim in the title, like kind of give a minute to think about it, check it out and see what's going on with that game. Cause man, it's good. It's really good.
Have you
all about the sound. Oh no, go ahead.
Have you tried playing it with the Xbox 360 Connect where you can shout your dragon shouts?
I was shouting even I didn't have the Connect. Come on, you gotta really role play to when you're playing Skyrim. That's hilarious, Paige.
I'm all about the sound effects this episode.
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
Just going through all the arrow in the knees. Like basically, there was an arrow in the knee guy in every single village.
Yeah.
In town.
I've still never played.
They're just making it up.
I've still never played more than like an hour of Skyrim. It's funny.
Sacrilege case.
It's funny too because I played it.
Where's the boot button?
Yeah, boo. Yeah, you guys get in unison. It was one of those like I played it and it was like the first quest was, or one of the earlier quests was like go to the cave and find this girl. She's the worst. And then you go there and they're like, and it might be a guy or girl, whatever. But from what I remember, then she's like, no, actually, they're a bunch of son of a guns, like. Yeah. And then you have the option to like kill her or follow, like bring her back to the town to kill them.
Love it.
And then you get back to the town and then you can actually like double cross her again. And I was like, wow, this game is insane. And then I never played it again.
How did that not compel you to keep playing? Like, that's such a good outcome.
I don't know. It was awesome. I was like, this is bonkers. You could just do whatever you want. And then I just never got back to it. But I did buy it for $4. So
the most fun I had was playing in the Dark Brotherhood, where I just went on trips to assassinate people.
Sounds on par.
You're free to do whatever you want, which includes making such a bad build that anytime someone hits you with a two-handed weapon, you instantly die. So I didn't get very far on playing the Nintendo Switch version, as I prioritized wanting to wear the amiibo unlocked clothes. Actually, my first memory of Skyrim is I was at my biological father's house and he put it on for me. And I made my character and I started, and then he was like, no, you're not doing it right. And he equipped like a fireball spell. So then I used it and then I lit myself on fire because I was apparently standing in a pool of oil. and then he
Mm,
said that I was dumb. So
Thanks
Not
a lot,
ideal.
Dad.
yeah,
I also enjoyed when the DLC came out where you could build your own house, and I built like it was basically a vault for all the things I had stolen throughout the realm, and I had like a big library built up and stuff. It was awesome.
Some of those DLCs were really good, actually. There's like a vampire one, I think. There's a dragon one where you go to, I think you go like one of the old, like Morrowind or one of the different isles.
Yeah, there's an island that you go to. I think that's the vampire one, though, isn't it? Isn't that where the vampires are on the island?
There's a different dragon one, like Dragonborn or something like that.
Oh yeah, maybe.
The vampire one's a separate one, but you can become like vampiric, and then like in the daytime it like burns you, and it's like a curse. You have to like undo the curse kind of thing if that happens to you. Yeah, it's just a really great like kind of simulation type game for an RPG, and again,
you can simulate being an absent father. It's great.
Back
your
when
poison.
Bethesda made good games, right?
Well, speaking of games where you can pretty much do anything, Baldur's Gate 3 is one of my picks for the list. Again, this is a pretty modern game, 2023. I was kind of surprised it was 2023. It only feels
Game
like
of
a
the
few
year.
months ago. It was an incredible game. Another game, if it wasn't like 150 hours to play through, I'd probably play it again. But so many different ways. Like I accidentally killed one of the party members at the beginning of my playthrough. So there was one person that I didn't have the entire game.
Which person was that?
It was that lippy girl at the beginning. I'm trying to think of her name. She was like, I think she was like, if you went a villain route, I think she had like a tattoo on her head, but she got caught in like a cage at the beginning. I think she was
the Lae'zel, the GIF.
Yes, yeah.
So when you said
Accidentally
lippy, I was
killed her.
thinking Shadowheart. So they're both a bit lippy.
No, yeah, I guess, yeah. No, Lae'zel, I remember her being in like, I think she was captured in like a cage or something, and I accidentally like knocked the cage off the cliff or something, and she ended up dying. And I'm like, oh well, I'm sure I didn't need her.
Oopsie poopsie.
Yeah. And then I think I almost killed the wizard too, but luckily I saved him at the last second, and he joined my party. So yeah, it's just a crazy game.
Well, there's there would have been an even funnier thing if you did kill him, because he's actually got a thing that pops up if he dies and you haven't revived him. Because he's if he stays
he's like a walking nuclear bomb or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so he's actually got like, because he's a wizard, he came out, he has a protocol, so there's like a hologram of himself that starts telling you how to resurrect him. And if you just ignore that, the game ends in like 3 days.
Yeah, like how wild of a game. It's
really funny seeing people just save all the bombs, and like I said, I was comparing, like when it came out, I was comparing a bit to Tears of the Kingdom, where people were like stacking crates so they could jump over things, because it's like the game let you do that, so technically it's allowed.
Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, with the bombs, like you could pickpocket someone and put like a bomb in their pocket and then walk away and they explode. Like it's just like genius, like chef's kiss. Like,
have you ever tried playing like a pacifist run, David, where you don't kill everything, or almost in quotation marks kill everything? Like,
do those exist?
I was like,
not when you're playing.
David is the dark OG, even without playing as the dark OG.
Yeah, you're not in the Dark Brotherhood anymore, David. Yeah. You don't have to assassinate everybody.
He is the Dark Brotherhood.
The game I should play for that is I heard in Metal Gear Solid 3, everyone that you kill in the game is in like a river at the end of the game or something as like a walk of shame, and like I think my game would crash from all the sprites that would be
why is this corridor like an hour long?
How are there 200 bodies in the river? There's only 100 characters in the game.
That's right,
yeah. All right. So I get staying on the topic of killing things. Casey's the next one on the list for
staying on the topic of your soul.
Ooh, yes. Dark Souls, baby. It's funny. I tried to play this game at least once before. I think the problem was I got it on the Switch, and that was, it's on the Switch. But anyway,
don't blame the Switch for your mistakes.
Yeah. No, honestly, I think it was.
I hated it until I played it on PlayStation.
Yeah, honestly, I think it was just more a mindset The first time I played it, um, it came out pretty early on Switch's life
Yeah, yeah.
span, if I remember correctly. So I feel like I was just playing a lot more games, or like trying to play a lot more games, especially with like, Talk Nintendo was like, all right, we got to stay on top of it, right? So I think it was just more like, oh, let me get in here, beat this game real quick, and move on. And not necessarily quick, but like, I just want to get through this game to get on to the next one. And that is definitely not the mindset to have when going into any Souls game, especially your first. So I went and then I ended up playing Demon Souls on PS5. And it's funny, it took me 2 tries. Again, I think I was just in that mindset, like, oh, let me just beat this. Versus like, no, let me go in and like just like immerse myself and let me play this game. I don't care if I play for like 3 hours tonight and I don't make any progress aside from just knowledge, and like practice. So once I got in that mindset, like, oh, I'm going to die a bunch, let me just learn and like figure out how this game works. It just hit on such a different level. I've got Demon Souls, Dark Souls 1 and 2, and I got to I got to the final boss of Dark Souls 3, and then the Steam Deck came. And I've not tried the final boss once in Dark Souls 3, but that's where my save lies. But 1, I think, is still the best. Like, 3, they get better at the boss design and how it all works. But the world, there's nothing better than Dark Souls 1, the world and how interconnected it is, and how, you get some fast travel, but like the last quarter of the game, you sort of unlock that ability where I think it like, and then like I remember playing 2, I was like, it's so weird. You could just jump from bonfire to bonfire right off the rip. It makes the world feel so much more, disjointed. Where 1, like I said, it's just you learn the shortcuts, you learn the lay of the land and where to go and how to get back to certain areas. And it's just, to me, it's a masterpiece. Like, is it the most friendly to a new player? Maybe not. Like I said, you sort of got to whack your head against it a little bit. But once you sort of get that, like, oh, this is how things work, and this is how you do it, and then once that sort of clicks, it's one of like the best games I've played in like recent history. That's like a little bit on the older side, and just was like, wow.
It's almost hard to have a really good first experience or first impression of this game because it just takes a level of patience and trial and error, I think, before you really get it. Like it'll click eventually for almost everybody, but whether you can get to that point where it clicks, that's the trick, right? It's hard to do that. It is a game that's kind of based on or built on failure, right? And that you get better after the failure happens. But man, if you can get into this game and then the series as a whole, like it's one of my favorite series in video games, like bar none. And when the next game, whatever it is, like Elden Ring 2, Bloodborne 2, Dark Souls 4, it doesn't matter. Like it instantly shoots to the top of my must play list. And this is where it all. I mean, there was Demon Souls before this on PS3, but I didn't really play that. I think for a lot of people, this is where it started, and yeah, what a journey! Jeez, these games are just incredible. Like the world is so both like challenging, dire, like kind of scary. What's around every corner, but once you figure out how to play, and you feel like a badass, you kind of just go wherever you want, and until you get to the next boss who wrecks you, and you're like, oh, I'm not actually a badass anymore, right?
I hate this game.
Yeah, then you throw another controller and take a break for a little while before you come back again.
But it's funny too because like again, like having played MMOs for a big chunk of my life on and off, it really does like have a similar design, right? Like MMO bosses. Obviously, it's a little different because you got a big team, but it's figuring out how the boss is and like, oh, we're gonna die to this. I've done raid nights where it's like, oh, we fought that one boss for 4 hours and we didn't kill it, and we just but we made we took it from 100% down to 30%, and like we learned a lot about how it works, and it's sort of similar. Like you're gonna go in there, you're gonna get wrecked, but each time you just sort of gotta assess what the boss is doing, right? You learn those patterns, and then all of a sudden, now you revisit that first boss that just kicked your butt for like 2 hours, and you're like, oh, this is so easy. Just roll this way, just tap him when he does this, avoid that. And like I said, a lot of it is just like gaining the knowledge,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
getting the reps in.
You gain so much from failing in this game. Like unlike some other games where it might just be like a mechanic thing or a skill thing. It's really a knowledge and experience kind of thing. So yeah, totally agree with it on the list.
Yeah, so this next game is technically we're technically this is a page pick, but I will say that this is one of those ones where I had access to the list and Paige hadn't updated hers yet, so I may have volunteered this one onto her, but I know she enjoys it. So
I just assumed that someone would have put it in there. Yeah, so Persona 5 Royal, which is, it's an extension of the game. The main thing is, the
a better version,
bit longer in the story, but there are differences. I would say the main benefit was the guns not having a ammo limit per the run,
Yeah.
which
having like 8 bullets or something. Like that's crazy.
Made getting to the treasure in one day a lot more accessible. Although it did do some other things where one of the boss fights tricks is to actually put it on the hardest difficulty to make it easier. So not all changes were equal, I guess. But yeah, I think most people that would agree that Persona 5 either version goes on the top RPGs list. It's just, it's a continuation of what they were doing with the last couple Persona games, but they really went all out in presentation, UI, the gameplay changes. Like I said, you got the gun. That's pretty useful.
Yeah.
The music is fantastic. And, the story is
more
all
interesting
right.
dungeons. Dungeons are way better
that's the
to
main
look
thing.
at.
Yes, the dungeons are actually pre-designed dungeons, and they're really, really awesome. That's actually a big highlight for the game for me personally, is like, because you're phantom thieves in this one, and so one of your first ones is an art heist, and it looks so cool, and you've even got the laser grid segment. You go in a bank, and you go like all these sorts of places where thieves would go, a casino, like.
The casino is awesome.
Yeah, although that was one, where it gates you off sometimes to do something. That was like, oh, I'm not going to go to the next floor because I don't have enough health and stuff. And then the next day I go up the floor and it like blocks me story-wise. I'm like, the story's pretty good. I see a lot of people cutting it slack now, but I do like that. There's one point where you're like, wait, why is nobody reacting to it? And then like that's the twist, is like that they did, but you don't get to know that until towards the end. And you've got great characters. Like I definitely like, especially like I think I started the game a few times. So I probably did got up to Yusuke about like three or four times in total before like having only finished the game like twice. So he's a favorite. I do like most of them, I think, especially as actually in the Royal version I went back and prioritized some of the party members, like such as Haru and stuff, more than the time before where I didn't have them maxed. It's just really good. I like the grappling hook. I like the little extra areas they added to those different dungeons.
Mm-hmm.
You even got mementos for some easier grinding. Unfortunately, the Royal version takes out the flu trick, sadly. Yep. But I literally, in the original version, I did the flu trick, like the last one, and then that entirety of the boat one, I didn't fight a single normal enemy because I had Ryuji's like bonus where like if you could beat, if you're high enough level, they just insta-die if you ambush them. And I really like the ambushing thing too, like the sneaking around or waiting to attack them from the back, especially as like there's a lot of games that sort of do that first advantage strike, but they make it a bit harder. Like playing Metaphor, I really wished I could just insta hide behind a box sometimes.
We don't mention that game on this one.
We may. That might come to pass. Persona 5, I haven't played the Royal version. The base game is so good, so I have no problem with this being on the list. We will be talking, spoiler for the next 4 picks, which we're going to cover in this episode. We will be talking about another Persona game, so maybe we will have to fight to the death to have only one of them on the list. We'll see. But I can understand why 5 would be on the list. It's so stylish. Like the first impression when you first boot up the game and see the menus.
Great intro too.
Crazy, yeah. It's an amazing intro. Like it really gets you into it.
Yeah, it's really, really good. And like I said, we'll talk about another game. So I'll save my comparisons till then, I guess.
Yeah. Well, looking at the time, I think we were, eyes bigger than our heads, or whatever the saying is, for thinking that we were going to get through the entire episode for 25 games. Clearly not going to happen at this point. So I think what we'll do is we'll do one more game each, which will round out 16, which is a nice round number. And then we'll save the real contentious games for the next episode that we do. And so I will, I guess... Oh, no, this is Jordan's turn. He put this game on.
Yeah.
Luckily, he put it on, so I didn't have to. So I was able to Jimmy an extra pick.
Speaking of things where there maybe should only be one on the list.
Oh, Paige, let me stop you right there. I'm about to take this game off my list, actually, because I have the exact same thought. I don't think they should both be. So
I think you're both crazy.
So
I think they could both be there, but if we were going to take one off, this would be it.
I think that's it. So I'm gonna explain why it's on my list, but also why I think we should take it off, and then we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But Final Fantasy VII Remake, obviously, we talked about Rebirth. We know how good that is, and it does improve on the open world, the exploration, the combat in a lot of ways over Remake. There's something about the Midgar area of Final Fantasy VII. Like, how many times have you started this game and like just played the Midgar section? And like you're like after that, you're kind of like, it almost feels like you've had like a full game experience by that point, by the time the game opens up into disc 2 and you leave Midgar and you see the rest of the world. But just Midgar alone was the perfect kind of setting for the opening of this new trilogy, the remake trilogy, I guess. The characters, the way they've come to life with the voice acting and the art and the animating and all that stuff, it really does make them so lifelike, and their interactions are just incredible. I really like kind of the setting of Midgar, and just kind of how like dour and broken it is, but then there's like moments where you kind of see like the people kind of coming together, or you see like the church area where you meet Aerith and stuff like that. Like you have these pockets of light in the game too, which are really kind of prominent or poignant amongst all the darkness of that is Midgar and everything Shinra has done to it. However, I will argue against Remake because I personally don't want both of the games on the list. I do think they're both incredible, and personally really enjoyed both. But I think I also want a list that's a little bit more representative of all the great games that have come out over the 25 years. So we'll keep it on the list for now, I think. But in the next episode, I'd like to talk about potentially replacing that with something, and maybe that's where our argument can be like, what do we replace some of these games with? I'll save the rest of my conversation for that point.
The man's about to veto his own pick.
I'm going to veto my own pick. It's I'm literally falling on my Buster Sword here, guys. Come on, okay?
Oh man, all right. So the next game on the list, which I think is beyond...
this is not coming off the list.
This is not coming off the list. I'm sorry. There's no way. Octopath Traveler 2.
Can you chocobo out the 2 part? Can you just edit that part?
No. What I was gonna say is this one deserves to be on the list just because of the Herculean task it had of turning a bad game into a good game.
How can you say that anymore?
That's incredible.
Easily.
At the time, that was what I thought.
Yes.
Yeah, but no, this game, it's amazing. It took, it took all the. What I'll say is, it took the things I didn't like about Octopath Traveler 1 and made them good in the second one. Like it made the interactions better. It actually had quests that involved more than one person. They looked at each other and had conversations. All great things, like the everything kind of tied together. In the end, it was amazing. The battle system is incredible. Like, this is, again, like, we're talking about how great Dragon Quest 3 is, the remake, and this 2D HD, and like, this is peak. This is, Square Enix has got gold here, and hopefully they keep mining it, because this is some incredible games that they got. And I don't know what happens now that Acquire has been acquired by From Software or whatever, or their parent company, but I hope this is not the last Octopath Traveler, and if it is, then I at least hope that the battle system, or at least the ideas from these games, live on in future games, because this battle system is one of the best in any RPG.
Boom, and it looks wonderful.
I'll just echo that point about the battle system in particular. I do think it's still the strongest one. It's so fun breaking the bosses, and all the audio and musical cues and everything that happens around the boss fights. It's still so just hype moments every time you encounter a boss fight. I find that just exploring this world, like seeing the HD 2D graphics too, again makes everything kind of come to life as well. The characters are all fun to play and interact with, and yes, see them interact with one another is kind of nice too. It's just as a strictly thing about the turn-based element, though, like a turn-based kind of top-down-ish kind of RPG, man, there are a few finer from the last 5 years.
Well, if we're throwing games off because they happen to be somewhat connected to other games, I don't know what we're about to do with the next one for Casey.
Yeah, I knew this one was probably not going to make the cut. But for me personally, Persona 4 Golden is the bee's knees when it comes to Persona. I will admit, right, Persona 5 is a quote-unquote better game. The dungeons are better designed. They're not randomly generated, but to me, like, the characters in 4 are what brings me to it. I think, like, the murder mystery, right? Like, of like what's going on with this, I thought was really cool. And again, it was my first Persona, so like I feel like a flaw that this Persona series has is, right, like, there's just like the archetype of different characters, like, oh, that's this game's Yukiko, like, or this game's Yosuke, like, oh, they're sort of similar, they're different characters, but like, like, to me, like, it's the first one, so I think it has that extra attention. But it really is just a great game. Also, the combat's really good. Like I said, I honestly, like, again, Persona 5, the dungeons are so well crafted, and like, they've got like, sort of puzzles and different things going on within them. But for 4, like, honestly, like, I sort of like that, like, ooh, I can sort of, it's dungeon time, like, I'm dungeon crawling. It's, I don't need to pay attention. I'm just going in there and battling things and getting to the end. And then, like, oh, now I'm sort of in like the relationship, school day, all that stuff. I'm going to pay more attention to the writing and all that, and what's going on. So it almost felt more like, oh, like, it had that extra, like, oh, I could sort of turn my brain off and just go in and enjoy this game, and have some, good combat and fun in the dungeons. And then, like, have the sort of contrast where it's like more, paying attention, doing the reading, learning the characters and the relationships. But yeah, I think, I think 5 is, pretty much the better game. Like, if you're going to recommend a Persona to someone, I guess the downside to 5 is it's so damn long. 4 is a long game as well, but like 5 is next level. So, like, I guess that could be a downside. But hey, like, make sure you got 100 hours to enjoy this game. Could be sort of a tall task. I know I'd have trouble getting that at that point now.
4 was like 60 hours or something like that. Like, I think it was 50, it was a lot less.
Yeah. It's still long, but yeah, like
it's
crazy,
not 100 hours long. Yeah. I would also say that Persona 4, maybe it's not as good a game, but I would say it's more emotional of it. Like,
for sure.
like the storylines and the relationships between them. Like it was definitely the more emotion. Like the characters seemed to be a lot closer in that game to me.
That's the big difference, I think. 5 gameplay wise, hands down, that's better. It's more fun. But 4, the characters and their relationships, it's probably of all the games Atlas has done, I think this cast and their interactions with one another, like they're so memorable. And you really get attached to them over that 50 to 60 hour runtime of the story. It's yeah, I mean, even Teddy, like his silliness is just infectious too. Like he's such a dummy, but like it's hard not to root for him too. Like
With all his beer puns.
yeah,
Yeah.
puns is so good. Just all the characters, they're all like every time they're together and they kind of chatting about what's happened next, or there's like a funny scene, like they're at the hotel and going to the spa, or they're doing a play at school or something, or just meeting up at the grocery store afterwards, figuring out like what they're going to do next. Like
Old Junes.
yeah, Junis is great, man. Like all their every time they're all together as a group, like it's wonderful. Like it's just you feel like you're sitting in on like this special rendezvous kind of thing.
Well, even that Marie saving at the very end,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
like that like the music from that. I remember the music in that dungeon. Like that was so memorable.
Yeah, and people might miss that too. Like that's an easy element of the game that you could have finished the game without playing. You know, like you don't necessarily get that extra content. So yeah,
it was definitely
a tough one.
It was a game I finished, and like I actually started like I played another like a little bit more of like a new game, you know. Which
me too. I did that too.
Especially is super like I didn't like end up actually doing any legit playthrough, but it was one of those ones like, you know, normally after a 60-ish to, you know, whatever it ended up being, you know, it's like, all right, I'm ready to not never think about this game again, but like I'm ready to move on and get a fresh game, you know. But that was one where I was like, I think a testament to what Jordan was saying is like I wanted to spend more time with these characters. Like I wasn't ready to move on.
Yeah, it's a tough group to move on from for sure. I always have those feelings whenever I finish a playthrough. I'm like, you go through those like ending kind of scenes, and you know the protagonist, you know, stuff that's happening with him. You're just like, I don't want this. I don't want this to end.
Yeah, and like I said, and you know, it has that extra for me that it was the first Persona game, and I was like, oh
yeah,
man,
that's
like
gonna hit.
It does live up and then surpass like the crazy hype, and also that PS Vita on the OLED.
Oh yeah,
chef's kiss, you know.
Good times. That was worth buying a Vita for, my friend. I bought a Vita for that game. So
yep, me too.
I'm sure I'm not alone there.
I bought a Vita that was potentially what do you call it when someone steals it and then sells it?
Hot.
Oh, it's hot, right?
Yeah.
A hot Vita.
There was a very weird exchange into Starbucks where I bought a used Vita from who I do not believe for a minute was the real owner.
Was he looking over his shoulders?
He had a party of like 5 other people, one of which was filming the transaction, and I'm like, this something's
very
fishy
weird.
about this.
Yeah. They were filming you, dude. Oh no.
Yeah. So that was a few years ago.
Gonna play Persona on this thing. What a pervert.
Yeah, I don't know.
Dedication to the Vita, buying it under under duress there.
I think I've bought like two games or 2 things off of Kijiji video game wise, and I'm convinced both of them were stolen items, because the first one was Pokemon Black, and it was like he probably was like in his early 20s, but when I started up the game, there was like a girl's name in the as in the character, which doesn't necessarily mean anything. But if you had seen the person that handed me the game when I handed him the $40, you would assume that probably wasn't his cup of tea to begin with. And yes, and then having 5 people walk into a Starbucks and ask me if I'm David, and then film the entire handing over of the money and exchange of the goods.
I don't think he has
what David's trying to say at the
instincts.
end of the day. He got a real good price.
Yeah, that's right.
If there's any police listening, he's just making this story up.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Did actually happen
I could
that
not
way.
I could not be held responsible for the
I did
actions of
not
others.
hire those 5 guys to go rob Emily. I mean, that girl that was might have had a Vita.
Yeah, I definitely did not pay them to storm a high school and steal it from someone's locker.
Have the statute of limitations on stolen Vitas, has that passed already?
I
And
hope
the
so.
judge is like, "What's a Vita?"
Yes, exactly. Vita's life. Vita Island. Come on.
Case dismissed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, take us home, Paige.
All right,
What you got?
so I got Atelier Riser 2, Lost Legends, and the Secret Fairy because I think the 20-second main entry in the Atelier series is the best one that I've played.
It only took them 21 tries to get it right.
Perfect it.
22 tries, yes.
It's not the first ever direct sequel in the series, but I don't think, but it's definitely been a while because generally they do trilogies that are sort of connected, like usually maybe taking place in the same world, and then maybe one of your party members or small NPCs from one game is in the next one. Whereas this is, actually the same protagonist. We've even got, this one we do go to a different town for the main majority of the story. And there's been a 3 or so year time skip, so we get to see, the characters have grown up a bit more, they get new designs, people get taller. I just really like it because, Riser 1, it takes about halfway through the game to get good. It's a bit slow. Whereas this one, it gets going from the get-go. Again, with, I guess, hard to talk about E8, where I don't really, I feel like the main story is kind of whatever, but it's really all about the people, and I really get that sense of community in this new city you're in. You get to all the NPCs that you make friends with, and you're doing quests for. You're sort of building up their individual little storylines, and you're doing those request boards, and that helps develop the play. Like, you feel like you're actually really a part of where you're living and where you're staying for that time period, and they do a really good job of introducing the other party members. Like, they even show off them having insecurity about being the new friend, and with like making new friends with people who are already old friends. And there's a lot of things that they added that's quite different to this one, and then they did not follow up on in the third thing, which the main thing is the dungeons. The way the dungeons are done in this game, they're really cool, and you have to, I think this one also added a grappling hook, or maybe that was the third one, I don't know. It's been a while since I played it, but they've got the you have to explore and find out certain things in the dungeons, and that helps unlock things. So you're thoroughly investigating them properly. I just really like the way the progression system works, and the combat is that active time combat, which I don't mind. And they continue just to refine and change things up in regards to that, and to instead of individually using items, you sort of put one in a core thing. So as long as you build up charge for it, you can technically keep using that same thing without having to actually run out of it in the inventory. And it looks really nice, and unlike 3, the text isn't abysmally tiny, so you can actually read what you're trying to look at.
I remember playing this game after kind of not finishing the first one, but just playing a little bit. I bought the first one on sale, and I ended up reviewing this game, Rise of 2. And yeah, didn't love the first one. This one really, really improved on the formula. I think Rise is a really, really charming character, kind of a great protagonist.
Yes.
You can kind of see, you do feel that, like you said, Paige, like warmth and kind of the bonding of the characters and everything like that, and her kind of role in the village and getting to know everybody there. Like she is a great heroine, I think, for sure. And yeah, I think the way that they improved on the gameplay, the combat felt a lot better. The exploration, acquiring all your crafting materials and stuff like that.
And the crafting system, which is a really big thing that
it's very robust.
I really like the Riser systems. It's sort of like you're funneling in until it makes enough points, and then you're just kind of going through a flow chart, and it's really, I think it's probably the one that makes the most sense to me. So they do change it throughout different trilogies. But it's really fun, and I really like stacking all the extra things onto it. And they did balance this game a bit better than the first one, so I did actually have to try a bit harder with the bosses, unlike the first one where the final boss had an actual weakness, so you could just spam a specific bomb at it. But
it's always nice.
Yeah, I think it's the best out of the trilogy, and possibly the best out of the series. I have not played over 20-something games though, so.
I think you should just own it. Just make the call. Don't.
I assume that it's the best Atelier game there is so far.
Yeah,
there's another one coming out. There's 2 coming out this year.
Oh, that's
And
right.
Jordan
it's-
did review. Jordan
it's
did
like-
review it.
I think
I
I
have
gave it at
confirmed.
least an 8, maybe an 8.5. Like I did
No,
like this game a lot.
You gave it an 8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the Yakuza series where it's like, oh, we get one game a year, and then 1 year we don't get any games, and then we get 2 games in 1 year.
And they make up for it the next year. That's right.
Yeah. And it does a lot better job of that than the Pokemon.
Oh, shots fired there, Paige. Just as we head
Well,
out here.
That's the best way to end is
Yeah.
because shots are going to be fired in the entire next episode, so you might as well shoot them.
Specifically
shoot them
at
now.
Pokemon as we start to try to get to Pokemon game on the list.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
right.
Preemptive
Oh,
shots
boy.
fired.
That and Pocket Edition.
Oh my gosh, yeah. That's the Pokemon
think-
card game, right? We're talking about here.
Oh, no, I was talking about 15.
Oh, I
Final
know.
Fantasy 15.
Yeah.
I just have
Well,
to-
After David's revelation that Octopath 1 isn't as bad as you remembered, he's got to give 15 Pocket Edition another shake.
it's only fair. Only fair.
I'd rather burn my Switch in a fireplace.
Well, I feel like you'd be willing to do that
Yeah, you might do that anyway.
for no other reason but your pleasure.
Oh yeah, you get a Switch too. We're not having 2 Switches in this house.
Yeah.
Burn the first one.
I already own a bag of potatoes.
Exactly. There you go. Yeah, so we'll call it here. That was fun. So we've got 16 of our top 25 of the last
We
25
definitely
years.
have 16 and 16 for sure.
And they are absolutely not solid at all. But we'll see what happens when we get to 25. There may be some swaps, as alluded to. There may be some bargaining for position, some
Vetoes.
jockeying. Yeah, some vetoes are going to be thrown around. But we do want to finalize the list in another episode, a follow-up to this one, before we get to ranking these games, which may take us the rest of 2025 for all we know. We'll see.
It might be the last you hear of us in
yeah,
mutual destruction.
Well, we got to get to at least 8 episodes because of Rebirth. Set the record there. So we'll see. See how long we can stretch it out. But yeah, thanks everybody for joining us for the part 1 of our top 25 RPGs of the last 25 years. Again, we've got up to 16, and our list so far, to recap, is Mass Effect 2, Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, Diablo 2, Ys 8, Lacrimosa of Dana, The Witcher 3, Trails in the Sky, World of Warcraft, Dragon Quest 8, Skyrim, Baldur's Gate 3, Dark Souls, Persona 5 Royal, Final Fantasy 7 Remake, ? I added that, Octopath Traveler 2, Persona 4 Golden, and Atelier Ryza 2, Lost Legends, and The Secret Fairy. Stay tuned for a next episode where we get the additional 9 games on that list and maybe do a little bit of Jenga, swapping pieces in and out. We'll see what happens. But hopefully you'll be back for that one. Thanks to Casey, David, and Paige for being here. Really nice to have the whole team together and everyone gets to chat. And of course, it's going to be one of our longer episodes because we all want to talk about these games. Thanks everybody for listening. Join our Discord. We're doing a game club right now on Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D. It is really fun. So many people are into it. We recently recorded an episode with that crew as well. It's going to be dropping soon, and I think it's already available to patrons on our Patreon, the Thirsty Mage. Lots of good stuff there. So join our Discord, please. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week, and talk to you again soon on the Thirsty Mage.
Adios.
Bye.
Bye.